Emp Lemon recently made a video talking about how there seems to be this rise of anti-criticalism, this new belief that corporate media that we tend to believe is just bad isn't actually as bad as it's represented as being, that there is a degree of entitlement from fans, that there is an unnecessary amount of negativity within the kind of internet zeitgeist surrounding things like Marvel or Star Wars or really just Disney and a few other corporations. And it's a really good video. However, he doesn't really explain why this is the case, why this kind of thought process is occurring more now, and why people believe this. Which leads to the topic of this video. Why aren't we allowed to hate things anymore? Why is it that whenever you offer criticism, whether it be legitimate or not, although it does occur often with legitimate criticism because most entertainment now is just not very good, why is there this visceral response from people who say things like, it's not made for you, shut up, just let people enjoy things, it's not as bad as you think it is, you just don't understand it, and you'll hear people throw around the words media literacy a lot without actually understanding what that really means, which is nothing. It means nothing, but I digress. So he does briefly talk about the first cause, which is corporate meddling, corporate influences, marketing, basically the company getting out ahead of a bad product and saying, well, actually, it's good. Look at all these people we paid to say it's good. That kind of thing. And I believe that's true to a degree. However, I think that there is another larger reason why we have this kind of culture of just enjoy product and be excited for next product. The classic red letter media meme. I think that a large percentage of these people who are a vocal minority, obviously, most people are not passionate about the slop they consume. That's why it's slop. They don't think about it. But the reason why people who should be analytical or critical are so defensive about content that is not good, about entertainment that is subpar, is because they view it as a political tool. I think, regardless of what kind of political spectrum you belong to, it's plainly obvious to see that the people who are the most critical of entertainment are right wing, and the people who are most defensive of entertainment are on the left wing. Or if we're being more honest, people who are conservative versus people who are progressive. Now, why would people who consider themselves to be socially progressive side with demonstrably evil megacorporations? The answer is because it's in vogue to be progressive. That's an objective fact or reality. Disney is going to make a big deal about having more minorities of any persuasion, racial minorities, sexual minorities. Really, that's the only kind of minorities that exist, but you get my point. They take them and they use them as this kind of marketing gimmick because it's something that's kind of new. It's progressive. It's intrinsically something that is eye-catching. And people who subscribe to this ideology that corporations are superficially pushing are going to defend this corporation that pushes it because they view criticism of the art that is being produced as a criticism of their ideology. And they're not always wrong. Just go on YouTube and search up the phrase woke, and you'll see 1,000,001 videos complaining about woke shit in Disney productions. And that is a poor criticism. But just because poor criticism is being given, it does not mean that all criticism is bad and invalid. If you're walking down the street and you see a house that has raw sewage spilling out the doorway because a pipe burst, and you say, wow, that's disgusting, there's raw sewage pouring out of that house. And some guy walks up to you and says, yeah, also, the paint job looks terrible. That is a completely unrelated and probably not sound piece of criticism, but that doesn't invalidate your criticism that there's raw sewage spilling out of the house. But what about legitimate criticism? Well, when people have their ideology tied to a piece of art, they will almost always view criticism of that art as an attack upon their ideology, and by proxy, a personal attack on them. So, how do you deal with that? By invalidating the criticism. You see a house with a kind of shabby paint job that has raw sewage pouring out the doorway. Someone walks up, ignoring the raw sewage pouring out the doorway, says, wow, that paint job is terrible. It's the worst paint job I've ever seen. And before you could say anything, some other person shows up and says, that house is fine. Your criticism of it is stupid. It's totally fine. You're just making up reasons to be mad at it. That might be true for one small aspect, but it doesn't change the fact that there is a fundamental problem with the house, that being the sewage. In the case of things like Star Wars or the MCU or I don't know, the Rings of Power or The Boys. I'm just trying to think of like things that are like examples of this phenomenon. It's always like a lack of good writing, terrible visual effects, just total disrespect for the audience, and just being a poor product all around. And the reason why this happens, and the reason why this issue still persists, is because it's a very nasty feedback loop. A corporation uses an ideology to market a subpar product. Proponents of that ideology are going to defend the subpar product in order to defend their ideology. Because of this, the corporation now has a extremely loyal customer base. Or more accurately, built-in marketing. Because as we all know, the people who defend the poor quality of entertainment rarely, if ever, actually contribute to the funding of this content. The people who defend the idea of female space marines aren't buying minis. It's that kind of idea, you know? And I think now we're kind of seeing this feedback loop fall apart because it's just not making Disney money. It's not making companies money. Netizens will produce ideological content for free forever because that's just the mental sickness that ideology does. But companies kind of need money to survive. And there was an article that was published a while ago about how the girl from Inside Out 2, like the Disney movie, was made to appear less gay because Disney tried to like use that as a selling point for things like the Buzz Lightyear movie, and it did poorly. So they're just dropping that marketing angle and they're trying to distance themselves from it because it's not making them money. And I think the only way that the feedback loop will continue, or not even like continue, but kind of transition into something else with the same symptom of people instinctually defending bad entertainment for grounds that are not based upon the entertainment itself, is if those people kind of infiltrate the company that's producing this. In which case, people will just waste corporate money producing their own ideological content. Which is kind of happening, but I think that corporate greed supersedes any kind of cult of personality that could arise within a corporation. I think in the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see either the total abandonment of social progressivism as a marketing ploy, or we're going to see it doubled down upon, in which case the actual entertainment value becomes the marketing gimmick, and the political ideology becomes the actual substance, which I don't think we're at yet, despite what grifters on the internet will say. Now, as I said, the reason I made this video is because of that other video that Amp Lemon made, but I recently saw a comment on my own YouTube channel that I think is a perfect encapsulation of this. It's this comment right here. This was posted on my Dungeons and Discourse video as I was making this video. I gave serious criticism of a YouTube channel that I believe is exploitative of women who experienced abuse and perpetuates misinformation and is borderline slanderous to innocent people. And this commenter's immediate reaction was to just call me a hater, make reference to my subscriber count as if that matters, and claim that people enjoy the content and therefore it is valid, completely ignoring the fact that the people who supposedly enjoy this content are the ones that are being exploited for their ad revenue, their watch time. They're being spoon-fed misinformation by someone who is not funny and not smart and is just a scummy person, to the detriment of people who are either good and are being portrayed as not being good, or who are the victims of abuse, and that fact is not being given the respect and maturity that such a topic deserves. The next time you see criticism of something, ask yourself, where is this criticism coming from? And then ask yourself, who would benefit from the invalidation of this criticism? Now, that about does it. I spent like 2 hours trying to make this video, but I kept losing focus and kept getting notifications, and the recording kept getting messed up, and I couldn't articulate things well, and I kept rambling on for too long about things that I already said or were not relevant. So hopefully the finished product is not as totally incomprehensible as my first attempt, or my second attempt, or my third attempt. If you like the video, then like it. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, criticisms, all that stuff, comment down below. I don't get many viewers, so I'm probably going to respond to any comments. If you thought there was any kind of insight in this video, then share it. And as always, thanks for watching and or listening. I apologize for the poor quality. It's not going to get any better.